Hey everybody, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to take a look at a game by one of my favorite designers, one that I actually have had for a while and haven't reviewed. We're going to take a look at The Gallerist by Vital Lacerda. Now this is a game from Eagle Gryphon that is about buying and selling art, promoting artists, just trying to run the best gallery and get the most reputation and fame that you can in order to earn money by the end of the game. It's relatively complex. There's going to be kind of a mishmash of information coming at you in the next section because there's no real coherent way to put everything in order. So forgive that a little bit, but hopefully you'll get an idea about how the game plays, and we'll come back at the end and get my opinions on The Gallerist. So here you can see the components for The Gallerist all set up. Now this is a complicated game, so I may not cover every little piece of minutia in terms of the rules, but I'm going to try and give you a general overview. So we're set up here, and at the beginning there is an important choice to be made by each of the players. Each player has their main pawn, and at the start of the game they're going to have a choice of which of these starting actions to place it on. Now this is really only important because where they place it is going to give them an endgame scoring condition, and it's also going to determine whether or not somebody may want to kick them out of that action as their first action in the game. So let's just say that the blue player decides to place here. Orange goes over here, purple goes over here. They would each take these little respective tiles, and these are going to be conditions that will give them something at the end of the game. So for example, at the end of the game, for each employee this person has, they're going to get 1 reputation and 1 money. And when they take it, they're going to place it out on one of these little starting spots on their board. You can hold 6 of these endgame conditions, but they're going to get some type of immediate bonus for placing it on here. So it could be they can hire an employee for 0, or they can take 2 non-equal tickets. So maybe they decide to go here and take a white and a pink ticket that they will have. And they can store these on little areas on their board. Now, in addition to this, this is also their starting spot, so when other players place there, they may kick them off. These other tokens will go onto the other players' boards, and they'll have those for the end of the game. Now, once we're all set up, each player is going to, in sequential turn order, take a turn, and that turn is going to consist of mostly picking up their pawn from somewhere and moving it to somewhere else. So that could be, for example, taking this pawn, let's say blue's first, and he decides to come over to this area here, and he would then take an action. If somebody else were going, they could theoretically come over to here to make blue take their or make blue get kicked off of here. Yellow will take an action here, and then blue will have a choice of actions to take based on the fact that they got kicked out of their spot. So just know there's some interplay between players here. When you kick somebody out of a spot, you may give them an additional action. All right, now what do the actions in this game do? Well, let's start with this one here because I think it's the most logical spot. Each one of these 4 placement spots has 2 actions available to it. They have 1 action on the left and 1 on the right. Now this spot here is going to allow you to discover new artists and to buy art. The whole concept of this game being that the players are running their own art gallery and trying to increase the fame of artists, get works of art from those artists, and hopefully make a profit on them throughout the game by increasing the fame and therefore value of that artist's work. So placing here is kind of the logical start. We have the option of getting or discovering a new worker or buying art from a worker that's already discovered. In order to do this, you'll see that we have several artists that are out here, one of which has already been discovered. This artist right here is a sculptor. They have no real fame or reputation right now. Fame, I guess, is the right word. They are 2-star artists, and their art costs 5 because that's where the cube starts on there. So actually, I believe it starts here. So they actually cost 3, and it can be moved up to 5 later. We just had this cube on the wrong spot. So you can buy his art for 3. I could come in, pay $3, buy the appropriate art, and put that art into my gallery. If I do this, I'm taking this action right here. I say I buy this piece of art, and I'm going to place this meeple out into the center. This is the plaza, and I'm going to take this piece of art and put it into my area here. Now, really, that's the ability that you get from buying art. It doesn't do much for you, but what it does do is, since people are now interested in this art, you're going to increase this guy's fame by 0, plus 1 for each white meeple you have in your gallery. So right now, I'm the blue player. I have no white meeples in my gallery. I should have a meeple here. But if I had any white meeples in here, his fame would go up by 1 for each one there, plus the base of 0. Additionally, for buying this, I'm going to get a brown ticket. These tickets will become useful later. So this would go into my gallery. Along with that piece of art, I would get a little token here to track what this guy's current value is of his art. So we see here that he currently has 1 green star. If we were to level up his fame, he would get 2 green stars. But right now, if I put this on here, he's worth 1 green star, which means his art is worth $5, which would be good because it only cost me 3. I've already made a profit of $2 simply by buying his art. Now, the other action is to discover a new artist. And you have a choice of a bunch of red artists or the blue artists here, and you have one each, red and blue, of photographers, sculptors, painters, and 3D artist workers here, so kind of a computer artwork. And you can choose which one you'd like to discover. When you choose to discover an artist, what you're going to do, we'll say this blue one right here, is you're going to take everything off of it, you're going to flip this tile over, you're going to put the cube onto the highlighted spot, so this guy starts out with a fame value of 4. And you're also going to get this little token that you see right here. This token gives you some type of immediate benefit. So this lets me draw a brown, a white, or a pink meeple into my gallery immediately. And this would simply just go out of the game after I used it. Now, in addition to this, since I discovered this artist, I get one of his commissions. I don't own any of his art yet, so I get a commission from him, and I would put that commission over in my area here. And what that says is I have the right to buy a piece of art from this guy at any time I want in the future, regardless of how much that art is currently worth, for the base value of what it was worth when he was discovered. So for this guy, I can wait until he's more famous and buy his art for 4 money no matter what when it comes time for me to buy that. With that done, other people can now buy art from this guy, but I always have the right to buy at least one, meaning there's only one piece of art available from him for somebody else to buy at this point in time. Okay, so moving on. That's both of the actions here. When you place, you choose one of the 2 actions, and you do it. When you leave a spot, and I should say that, when you leave a spot, if you happen to have workers that you have hired, you can leave behind a worker in that spot. And now if somebody else goes there and kicks out your worker, you have the option of taking a kicked out action, and we'll come back to those in a little bit. Now, moving over to here, it's going to go kind of in a weird zigzag order. When we move to this spot here, there's 2 actions you can take. And these actions are going to be to acquire a contract and then to use these contracts to sell works of art. In order to acquire a contract, you simply choose which one of these contracts you want from the lineup. There are 4 different choices right now, although there's really only 2 choices in terms of type of artwork that you're going to be able to sell using this contract. We have the 3D renderings and we have paintings. So buying one of these contracts, or simply taking one of these contracts, gives you the ability to sell that type of art, in this case a painting. So if I were trying to get and sell a painting, this would be a good contract to have. When I take it, I place it on one of these piles here, and you'll see there's different piles, brown, pink, and any color ticket. And when I place it here, I'm going to take the appropriate colored ticket, and I'm going to place it onto my mat. Now, I guess this is a good point to talk about these types of actions because I've mentioned tickets several times. Now, what are these tickets for? Well, at one point I told you when you got an artist's piece of work, the previous artist, this guy right here, when I got him, I got 0 fame plus 1 for each white guy I have in my my gallery for my person here, so blue. So if I had white tickets, for example, on my turn, I could take what's called an executive action to move white guys using white tickets. For example, I can use a white ticket, spend it out of the game, to move this meeple from the plaza into my lobby. Or if I had 2 white tickets from the plaza into my lobby, into my gallery. And that's where he would have been beneficial for spending him, or sorry, for getting the additional fame. You don't actually spend them, but for getting the additional fame on my artist, therefore further increasing his value. You can also use these tickets to move guys out of other players' lobbies back into the plaza. So it's a way to manipulate where you can put these guys in order to get points for them later. Now, that's how you take a contract. Contracts give you several different benefits. 1, they let you sell that type of art. 2, you'll note on the bottom here, there's a little bonus icon action. As an executive action on one of your turns, you can move a guy to that contract and take that bonus action. And that's these little assistants again. So they're coming back into play. When you move a guy here as an executive action, you get that ability. And this is to draw any colored meeple you'd like out of the bag, and you put him into your lobby. So it's a great way to get more guys into your lobby, and you'll see more interaction with that later. In terms of using these, when you do decide to sell your art, which will be the next action we talk about, these will flip over and you'll see another benefit from them then. So, selling artwork. How do we do that? Well, if you have the appropriate type of art, let's say this player had a painting instead of a sculpture, he could sell this painting with that contract. And in order to do so, he's going to look at what the current star value is of that work of art. So let's say maybe he bought it at a low star value. So he had got it at a 1-star value and it was worth $5, but through some different actions in the game, he had upped it to a 3-star value. He could sell that work of art for $11 with that contract. He would then take this card and flip it over. And when he flips it over, he's actually going to have to kick somebody out of his gallery in order to sell his piece of art. And he can choose any guy he wants. So if he happened to have a pink guy in here, he could send that pink guy all the way back to the plaza out here, flip this over, and you'll see this card has a pink and a brown side. If he used a pink, he would flip it this way, and the pink side would be on the top. If he used a brown, he could flip it this way. And if he had used a white to sell the piece of art, he could flip it either way he wanted to. So we'll say he used the pink. The meeple that was on it, if any, is going to come back, and that shows that this card is now available for use again for another bonus action. As another executive action later, the player could then activate this card again, and this time it gives you a different bonus. This time the bonus it gives is, for every pink and every white guy you have inside of your gallery, you are going to get 2 or 1 influence respectively, and that's going to move you up on this influence track, which is good for a variety of things in the game. When you sell a painting, it's also going to, or any piece of art, it's going to move it out of your gallery to the side, and there'll be some interaction with that later on or at the end of the game. Now, we've covered both contracts and selling. Let's go down here and we'll talk about increasing the fame of somebody or kind of boosting their visibility and hiring more workers, because you'll see I'm starting to use them out on the board. So this spot here with the thumbs up is going to allow you to increase the fame or reputation of one of your artists, or anybody's artist really. What you must do is you must spend influence, which you saw you can acquire in a variety of different ways. But you spend influence in order to boost up their kind of visibility. So let's say I want to boost this guy's visibility here, doing some marketing for him. I would spend 1 of my reputation here, and I'm going to put this marker out on him. So now he's going to go up 1 fame plus 1 for each white guy I have in my gallery. Again, none, but if I had one over here, now we're talking a total of 2. So he's automatically going to go up 1. Additionally, for doing this, I get my choice of tickets. So I'm going to take a ticket, which you saw can be used to move guys around the board in order to have different constituents inside your plaza and your gallery. Sorry, lobby and gallery. Now, if he was already a 1, I could have spent 2. I would have scored influence based on the number of pink and white meeples in my gallery. And he would have gone up 1 plus 1 for each white inside of my gallery. You get the idea. You can do this over and over and over again throughout the game to increase the value of an artist that maybe you've invested into for a piece of art, or you hold a consignment for so that you can buy it later, hopefully getting them up so that you get a big return when you do sell their piece of art, or maybe even making them a master, which is worth money at the end of the game and is also one of the end game conditions. The other action at this spot is that you may hire more of your workers. So you'll see that you have 2 to start the game, but you may place them either out on the board to take kick-out actions for you, or on the cards to activate their abilities. So you can hire more of them at costs printed on your board. For example, -1 to hire the first one, $2 to hire the second one, but it gives you a brown ticket, $2 for the third one, and it gives you a pink ticket. But you can only ever hold 4 here. So you can have more than 4 out, but only 4 can ever be on your board. Now the last 2 actions are over here on this left-hand side of the board, and they're really pertaining to endgame scoring in many different ways. There's a lot of points available over here. So when a player takes their actions over here, they have a choice of interacting with the top or bottom half of this grid. The top half of the grid is going to give you different endgame scoring conditions, but it's also going to place you into these columns that score points at the end of the game. In order to place over here, you're going to need 1, to have a certain amount of influence you can spend, so 3, 2, or 1 to spend that influence. 2, you're going to need to have certain meeples within your plaza, the dotted line here, sorry, lobby. It's a hard condition, hard thing to say between plaza and lobby for some reason, but you need them in your lobby. And you can have, for the first column, any color, for the second column, a brown and a pink, and a third column, a white and a brown or a pink. Now, you must have also sold a piece of artwork over here or bought a piece of artwork of the right type. Obviously, if you've sold it, you've bought it, but you must have a piece of that type of art that's appropriate for the appropriate row here. So this row is 3D art, pictures, sculptures, paintings. So it's both the influence and the guys in your lobby, but also the art types that you've acquired. When you decide to go over here, you will spend the influence, again, moving down on this track. You will remove a guy from your lobby, and it can be any guy from your lobby, back to the plaza. And you will place one of your workers, let's just say it's this one, out onto the appropriate spot. So if I had, say, purchased a painting and I had 3 influence and I happen to have any colored guy in my plaza, I would be able to place my worker right here. Spend the appropriate amount of influence. Actually, you gain the influence. My mistake. You don't spend it. You gain it. So in this case, you're actually gaining 3 influence. Note the lack of a minus here. And then you're going to take this tile and you're going to put it out onto your board. And again, this will let you score maybe some influence. So for the pink and white meeples you have in your gallery, or you could get money for the brown and white guys you have in your gallery. You could potentially get some fame increase for one of your artists, or a meeple, or a free hire of a worker. So you can put this out here and you would score it appropriately at that point in time. Additionally, it gives you more endgame scoring. So for each grouping of 3 colored meeples you have, you'll get $4, which are really victory points at the end of the game. So that's how you interact with this top part here. The bottom part is what we call kind of the international market. And it's an auction where you're bidding for paintings. Now, when you do this, instead of having to have a particular type of art that you've bought or sold, you still get the reputation, you still have your lobby requirements for meeples, but instead of getting an endgame condition, you're going to place a meeple into one of these rows here, or columns. The column you choose is still dependent on this information, but the row you choose is dependent on the amount of money that you are willing to pay. So if you're willing to pay 6 money and you happen to be willing to, or you have a white and a brown or a pink in your lobby, you can place right here, give up your $6, and immediately score for reputation. So 2 for each pink and 1 for each white in your gallery. At the end of the game, several things are going to happen with this area over here. First, each of the columns is going to pay off for whoever has the majority in that column, 6 money, 3 money, and 1 money for first, second, and third. And the other 2 columns also pay out in this manner with actual larger amounts because they're going to cost you more in the bottom area here. There's also a auction for these paintings here, or I guess works of art. They're not necessarily paintings, but whoever has the highest total value of money paid to this bottom section here is going to get to take one of these pieces of art and add it to either their gallery or their sold works of art at the end of the game for some victory point conditions. So there's a lot of endgame scoring going on over here, a lot of it for having majorities in these columns, a lot of it for picking up these different types of endgame scoring, and then also the ability to get these paintings, which will be worth, or not paintings, but works of art, which will be worth money at the end of the game. Now, you're going to play on in this manner, taking actions one at a time, potentially getting kickoff actions when one of your guys is left behind, or using executive actions, which can be to use tickets or to use the bonuses on your cards. And you're going to do this for quite a while. Now, kick-out actions are simply the ability to take an action or an executive action based on somebody else kicking you out of a space. So a great example would be if Orange comes over here, they kick out Brown's work, or sorry, Blue's worker, and Orange does their action. Blue now has the choice of taking an executive action, which is using tickets or using a bonus on one of their cards, or they can take this action again, but they must spend some of their reputation to do so. And what they must spend is they must move down to the next closest pink spot. So in this case, Blue would move down here, and then they can take either one of these 2 actions off turn. They're doing it on Orange's turn instead of on their own. Just a little bit of an aside there. I know this is kind of all over the place, but there's a lot to talk about. You're going to play on until kind of a mid-game condition, where there's a mid-game scoring. One of these stacks of tickets will run out. When this happens, there's going to be an immediate mid-game scoring where you get 2 influence and 1 more influence for each pink or white guy that you have in your gallery. And you also do the same for money, brown and white, giving you money at the middle of the game. You'll then continue playing until 2 of the endgame conditions happen. One is all of the tickets are gone. One is there are no more meeples left in this bag. If there are no more meeples left in this bag, and they replenish as you put out new works of art. Or if two of the different artists out here reach a master level or a celebrity level, the game will end. At the game end, you're going to score for various different things, and this is all outlined on the board. So you're going to score first this area over here. So you're going to score these columns, and you'll get money for that. You will then score all of the victory point conditions you have on your board that you've acquired throughout the game, getting reputation and money for each of them appropriately. You're then going to sell all of the paintings remaining in your gallery, or you're going to get money as if you sold them, and those are going to be worth whatever the current value of that artist is for the painting that you paid for it. So hopefully you made some profit on that. Then you're going to go over here and you're going to take a look at this auction. This auction out here is going to play out. Whoever spent the most money to place meeples here will have first choice of one of their pieces of art. The second will get the other piece of art. Then, at the start of the game, each player is dealt 2 cards with victory point conditions on them. One for cards that you've sold, so pieces of art that you've sold, and others for pieces of art that are still in your gallery. You then look and see if you satisfy any of the conditions. For example, this person wants to have sold 2 sculptures, or a painting and a 3D art, or a camera, and if you've satisfied one of these, you get that amount of money. And the same, and the same for what's left in your gallery. So you want to have one of each of these 3 in your gallery in order to get 10, or 2 pictures, a 3D rendering, and a painting in your gallery to get 15. All right. After you've done that, the last thing you do is you convert any of your remaining influence into money, and you'll see that you get a money for each of these spaces that you're able to move down. So from here, I could move down to there and get 1, 2, 3 money, actually a 4th money, and use that. And then whoever has the most money at the end of the game, following all of these various conditions, will be the winner. Well, there you have it. That is The Gallerist from Vital Lacerda and Eagle Gryphon Games. This is I'd say it's a pretty good game. Now, I owned it at one point, to be completely honest with you. Got rid of it. Not really sure why I got rid of it, but got rid of it. And recently acquired another copy for review, and was really surprised by the game when I went back to it. I got rid of it, probably thinking that it wasn't my favorite thing, that I wasn't real big on it, but it turns out that there's a lot more there than I remembered there being there. So for the simplicity of this game, or I guess let's back that up, for as complex as it sounds in the description that I gave you, and maybe that's my fault for not making a clear and coherent description, but in the description I gave you, it sounds relatively complex. There's, all these different sub-steps to taking these different actions. You've got to flip the guy over, you've got to take the little token, you've got to put his marker down. You get some benefits for discovering him in the later part of the game. When you buy or sell a work of art, there's all these different pieces you have to move around and deal with. But in reality, when you stop and think about it, there's only 4 places you can place your worker. There are only 8 actions associated with those 4 different things. So it's not that much to work on. The complexities come in with the interactions between players, kicking players off and giving them the executive or the kickoff actions that you'll have to check out in more detail when you play the game, if you play the game. And in the order in which you execute those different actions. So is it a good idea to get contracts early and kind of give yourself an idea of where you're going? Also, there's some benefits you can use from those contracts. Is it a good idea to find an artist first and get that commission so that you can later buy when they've already been bumped up some? But if you do that, is somebody going to increase the fame of that artist, or are they simply going to avoid them? The trick comes into finding out ways where you can invest in certain cards that you're going to need for the end of the game, or in order to place out on that international market area on the left-hand side of the board, and being invested in enough different things, different types of art, different artists in particular, different end game strategies for scoring, getting more money or more influence that you can use. In order to be viable, you certainly want to be building something that's good for just you, but also kind of being in on different art types that may or may not be increasing in value that other players are interested in. There's just a lot going on. Let's put it that way. There's a lot of choices to make. There's a lot of things that you can do, but all in a relatively simple package, which I think is nice, because not all of Vital's games are known for being 1, easy to play, 2, easy to remember, or 3, easy to do well in. So I think this is one that kind of gives you an entry-level feel in terms of ability to play the game, but a lot of depth in terms of evolution of playing well and things like that. I'd say in terms of Vital's games, it's near the top of my interest. I mean, I love pretty much everything he makes. Lisboa is probably my favorite, but I'd call this one pretty high up there in terms of replayability, ease of play, yet still good strategic depth. So if that sounds good, check it out. That's the Gallerist.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.